Hey everybody, it's Nick and Judge Eric, and we have just returned from the GP du Lac Chargagagog Manchagagog Chowbunagungumog over there at Thompson Speedway in Connecticut.
Now, making this race happen at all was pretty insane. Kim had to live out of a rental minivan and self-quarantine in Connecticut, which was pretty nuts. Ken and Dale, our marshals, had to get tests before they could show up in Connecticut, and I had to stay in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which was one of the allowed states into Connecticut, just so that we could be there to make the race happen.
Yeah, and on top of all of those COVID and travel-related difficulties, we had a tropical storm roll into Connecticut the week of the race. Now, for non-Spanish speakers such as myself, the name of this storm was a little bit difficult to say. I thought it was Isaias, somebody else thought it was Isaias, and I don't remember what the correct pronunciation was.
Isaias.
So the power was still out at the track when we opened the gates, but the power crews, which included a Lemons racer who had to bail out of the race to fix the power lines, they all worked really hard to get the power back on just in time for Friday tech inspections. All of that was so butt terrible and just about as stressful as any race has ever been for us.
Now, through all of that, Lemons racers who showed up, they had a great attitude, they were laughing the whole time, really were kind of not bothered by the whole power outage thing. It was pretty great.
Yeah, and that attitude really continued into the racing. By and large, this was a very clean event. We had very few black flags all weekend. The driving was really good despite the weather and the conditions. So for most of you, really good job.
Over the years, we've seen plenty of awful Back to the Future time machines, the DeLorean, the whole thing. And we've seen it on everything from a Nissan 300ZX to a Ford Tempo.
Are you telling me you built a time machine?
Ford Tempo.
Way I see it, if you're gonna build a time machine into a car, why not do it with some style?
And while a Tempo is a hilariously bad machine, we've never, until this race, seen a Back to the Future DeLorean made out of something even worse than a DeLorean.
Yeah, that's right. This is Team Out of Time. They were first-time Lemons racers. They found a Lancia Scorpion for $200. This should be setting off alarm bells even to Lemons people. But they said, hey, how bad could it be?
The short answer is they finished dead effing last, got towed in 3 times with 2 laps complete, went home by noon on Saturday, and then very wisely spent all of Sunday on a boat on a lake very far from the racetrack.
And then they made maybe the best decision in the whole process. They sold the car to some other suckers just a couple of days after the race.
So the upside of the pandemic and all these canceled events is that lots of racers have had a lot of time to polish their turds of a race car. I've had several show up with fine paint jobs, and these guys maybe built a new wing on their car, probably watched Ford vs. Ferrari like 800 times during lockdown.
In theaters this summer, 2 titans of the automotive industry do battle at one of the toughest tests of man and machine.
We know that maybe some of these cars end up looking too nice, but they looked hella sweet. Except this one, which the team drove to the track, pouring smoke and steam out at the gate.
Among those teams with good-looking cars were number 21, Slow and Mellow, and number 34, What Are Lug Nuts? These were both rookie teams. They had clearly spent lots of time researching Lemons. When they showed up, they did everything right. They learned from their mistakes. They stayed out of trouble. The Slow and Mellow guys finished 13th overall. That's hella sweet for a first-time effort.
Now, at this race, we had not one, but 2 engine swaps from a Chevy Cobalt SS. Why, you ruined classic.
Now, you may be thinking to yourself, the Cobalt SS was as quick as a Mustang, so how could this possibly be $500? But if you poke around, you know that the average Cobalt SS has moved way past the rare classic stage and directly into the EPA bodily fluids and drug residue superfund stage of old cars.
Now, both teams needed biohazard suits to get the engines out of their respective donor cars and get the swap done. And by done, we mean breaking things every 12 seconds on the track. Still awesome to see, but terrible in execution, but hella sweet in idea.
But terrible was this poor guy in a Ford Focus This will happen sometimes. He's driving along, he's not feeling so great, so he pulls off near a corner station, opens the door, and totally blows chunks everywhere. So at this point, we felt like it was prudent to have this guy checked out by the EMTs. We called him up and we realized, we need to give them the information of the team name and all that, and we didn't know it, so we checked our handy-dandy team roster.
Barf!
Not in here, mister. This is a...
Ford Focus.
Nah, that's my name. Barf!
The C Team's Dodge Daytona Shelby Z was absolutely steamrolling Class B for about 6 hours.
6 hours is a long time. I'm sure that they just soldiered on and won the class easily.
Yeah, they caught on fire.
We had a couple of guest judges for this race, Chris Haas and Manny Kotsias.
Isaías.
Couple of guys from veteran Lemons teams Elmo's Revenge and Super Grover. They helped out tremendously in the penalty box. They came up with a couple of great new penalties as well.
Now, Manny runs a shop in New York.
Boom, there you go, bam! Oh!
And so he welded a bunch of obscure nuts onto a piece of plate steel and then made a team go find fasteners in their paddock that would fit the nuts. They were hella obscure. The team took about 90 minutes and went to a hardware store just to get like 2/3 of them full. That was hella sweet.
Yeah, and Chris came up with the Make Team masks that show your offenses penalty. These days, during COVID, you gotta be wearing a mask at all times at a Lemons race. So Chris brought some masks, he brought some fabric markers, and you had to write what you did to earn your black flag on your mask, which was hella sweet, and it let everyone know at all times what you had done.
Hella sweet was the Swedish fish Saab. That alarm means that it's time for another edition of Which That Sucked Least.
Let's meet our contestants. Contestant 1 is Scuderia Victor Motorsports. They literally tossed their previous Lemons car, a Fiat 131, into a dumpster last year and traded up for a 1990 Chevy Corvette C4. Let's see the vitals here. 245 horsepower in a classic C4 Corvette.
Corvette magazine!
Chevy's horrible, guaranteed to fail 4-speed automatic transmission, and driving ability on par with the dumpster-bound Fiat 131. Contestant 2 is the Frankenvet, a conglomeration of General Motors trash loosely pasted onto a 1986-ish Chevette. In their favor, the Chevette has a 5-speed manual transmission that tossed its cookies unloading from the trailer, a 12 million mile supercharged Buick V6, and an inexplicable vacuum cleaner in their pits to clean up the inevitable piles of kitty litter. So, Lemons fans, which that sucked least?
They're both losers! Losers!
As you guys know, we normally don't spend much time on talking about the winners, but the racing in Lemons has been really good lately. And this race in particular turned into one of the wildest finishes we've ever seen in any kind of racing, in or outside of Lemons.
Three Pedal Mafia, yeah, the same team who's run a Rolls Royce, a Citroen, and a boat, won by just 1.3 seconds in their Honda Civic, which is the closest Lemons race of all time.
And in reality, there were really 5 teams in serious contention for the win. There was Three Pedal Mafia's other car, which was the Toyota Cressida, the FRS Ugly Uncle Toyota Solara that was the second place car that finished only 1.3 seconds behind the winner, and the Bazinga Racing Nissan 300ZX that finished just a couple of laps down.
Now, the fifth car in there was Silly Nanny's Audi A6 that was actually leading the race until there were just 2 corners left, and then the wheel fell off. So Three Pedal Mafia were right behind. They just snuck by as the Audi attempted to drive on 3 wheels, and it went farther than you might have expected.
So that, in fact, was I Got Screwed number 1. There was enough screwing going on at this race that we had to give out a second I Got Screwed. It went to Eastbound and Down in their Subaru Impreza. You may remember these guys from having blown up their engine last year at Thompson. Well, this year they did the same thing. They blew up the engine unloading from the trailer, which is oddly common. And they flailed all weekend just to get it through tech on Sunday afternoon.
Just to seal their own fate, they bet the Lemons judges $20 on the lap total before this new engine was going to blow up. And to be fair, they set their sights pretty low with expecting 4 laps out of it, and the judges had bet on 2. Guess how many laps the Subaru got?
1, 2, 3.
Are you serious?
Fortunately, there were very clear rules set before the bet was made, which is that this was operating under Price is Right rules. You have to come the closest without going over. So they lost their own bet.
Heroic fix at this race went to the British Empire Strikes Back in their Triumph TR8. Now, these guys have killed a ton of Rover V8s in the last year and a half. Usually, the internals just end up being a pile of tinsel. This time was no different. They blew it up on test day, and the team captain sent the rest of the team back to Philadelphia to get parts from other blown-up engines to swap back in it to put a motor back together.
So while most of the team had gone all the way back to Philly to start assembling this motor, the captain, after getting a good night's sleep, wakes up the next day and says, this is just a Land Rover V8. I wonder if there are any of those kind of closer to us. He goes on Craigslist, finds an entire Land Rover Discovery in Thompson, Connecticut, which is, in fact, where Thompson Speedway is located. So he called the guy, finds out not only is this thing in Thompson, but it's on the property adjacent to the track. And the seller was like, yeah, man, we'll deliver it to the front gate.
So a couple hours later, the team straggled back in, all tired and disheveled with parts of a motor put together. And the team captain saw them as they rolled up and was like, hey guys, got a motor right here.
Oh, come on!
The regional trophy at this one was the Consummate Good Guy Trophy, which really goes to the whole Great Globs of Oil team, but nobody embodies this more than team captain Yuri
Isaías.
Yeah, these guys go race after race, blowing up engine after engine, and in this case, getting run the hell over by a Corvette.
Corvette magazine!
Whatever horrible things befall them, Yuri and his crew are always just happy to be spending the weekend at a racetrack.
For good measure, Lemon's tech guy Dale Strimple had driven out from Michigan and was having brake issues with his Hyundai Santa Fe. Kim snagged the keys to Dale's car, and the Great Globs of Oil guys spent most of their Sunday afternoon fixing it up for Dale so he could drive back to Michigan. That's pretty much the definition of consummate good guys right there.
Judge's choice went to number 363, La Fiesta.
Isaías.
This little thing was spectacular. We've never really appreciated how awesome it is to bring a Malaise-era Econobox to Lemons. This thing runs on 13-inch wheels. They literally drove one of those tiny little wheels right off the car. They swapped on a new wheel, went back racing, no problem. They were always having a good time, and the Fiesta looked great on track. It was an easy judge's choice.
Organizer's choice went to Neutralize and Destroy in their Dodge Aspen. Now, somehow in 15 years, we've never had a Dodge Aspen in Lemons until these first-timers showed up with their Aspen Coupe. Now, this one had been bought as an oval track project, but the team rebuilt basically everything on it. And as such, we expected to lift the hood up and see some kind of hot Mopar engine in it. Instead, they put in a base model Chevy Cobalt engine. The transmission and clutch came out of a wrecked Polaris Slingshot, which is hella sweet. They had a great attitude, and aside from a couple of small missteps, they did pretty much everything right, including bringing a Dodge Aspen with a Chevy Cobalt engine to a Lemons race. So maybe they'll add a matching Plymouth Volare for the next race. But totally awesome organizer's choice.
And that brings us to the Index of Affluency, which went to the Roots of All Evil and their Sunbeam Rapier. This is a car we've seen 3 times. Somehow it hasn't won IOE before, despite running like a train, a very slow train, at every race that it's entered.
Now, it's mostly Ford Pinto parts under the old thin Sunbeam sheet metal, which is an IOE double whammy. They tooled around all weekend with one of the slowest cars, beat 30 teams of BMWs and Miatas and all those things. Slam dunk IOE for one of the oldest British things we've ever seen in Lemons.
There you go. Here's Lemons in a nutshell.